Thank you very much. Great to be here. So I speak a lot, and a lot of times I try to talk about different topics, but the only thing that ever interests anyone is, what should I eat? Again and again and again, people ask, what should I eat? And you know, everyone from Barack Obama's chef to Dr. Oz has asked me this question. You might ask why they would ask me. Believe it or not, I'm actually a little bit famous. I'm not Jane Fonda famous, but I am what people call fish famous. I have just done tons and tons of reporting about fish around the world. I've written this book, For Fish, which was a James Beard Award winner and a bestseller, blah, 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 and reported for all these different places, and et cetera, et cetera. I've been all over the world. I've been to every corner of the world, but what should I eat? Again and again, people ask me, what should I eat? As I said, I wrote For Fish. I tried to get away from fish, and I wrote about climate. I tried to write about quitting my iPhone. I even wrote most recently about bringing George Washington back from the past to run against Trump in 2028. What should I eat? So it's my particular cross to bear. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you about what you should eat. Well, first of all, we should look at sort of where we fit in as Americans in this whole space. So we're second in overall carbon emissions as a country. But when you start drilling down and you look at individually what we're like, we're not so great. In fact, we're terrible. We about 15 tons of carbon per person per year in the United States, which means congratulations, we're number one. We are collectively the most climate impactful people on the planet. So, yeah. But what should I eat? Okay. Well, what do we eat? Well, so a lot of people, if I were to ask you, who here eats the Mediterranean diet, right? Probably a lot of people would say that's what they're doing. Well, no. Actually, we eat the SAD diet, the standard American diet. Just a little bit of Mediterranean, but mostly we're eating a lot of meat and a lot of processed food. And our number one thing that we really like is beef. 27 to 100 kilos of CO2 emissions per kilo of fish, kilo of meat on the plate. So we think, well, let's do better. Let's become a vegetarian. Sorry to say, cheese is actually pretty darn bad, 6 to 13 kilograms of CO2 per kilo on the plate. Chicken is actually better, believe it or not, than cheese. So you could always have the chicken if you want to have the chicken. But here's something interesting. Look at fish. And look in particular at this fish. This is the Alaska or walleye pollock, 1 to 3.8 kilos. That's much better than a lot of land food. You may not know the walleye pollock, but actually you do. It's in your filet of fish sandwich. It's also in your California roll as fake crab. And anybody here a Larry David fan? You might recall that Cheryl and Larry David break up because during sex, Larry can't stop talking about the difference between fake crab and real crab. So the Alaska pollock, that is the fake crab. But it's real pollock. Anyway, so that is a very good carbon deal. But let's look more deeply. So what about seafood in general? Should you just eat all seafood? Well, of course, once again, America number one. Our number one seafood choice, 5 out of the 15 pounds we eat every single year, is the worst absolute seafood choice there is, shrimp. Shrimp, you might not recognize it in this form. I'd like to help my audiences along. So shrimp is just bad on a lot of fronts. When you catch shrimp, you kill about anywhere from 5 to 15 pounds of other stuff for every pound of shrimp that comes in. But when we farm it, it's particularly bad. So this is a mangrove forest, a photo I took in Vietnam. This is the natural habitat for the sort of incoming water that is a kind of nursery ground for shrimp. This is the way a mangrove forest should look. This is the way it looks after shrimp farms have moved in. We've lost millions and millions of acres of mangrove forests, and this is really particularly bad because mangrove forests turned out to be better carbon sequesters than even tropical rainforests. So we're losing it because we would like another shrimp cocktail. Not a good choice. Our number two seafood choice is also really problematic. Salmon, and in particular farmed salmon. So farmed salmon is by and large what Americans are eating. I know I'm sort of in the heartland of salmon country over here in Seattle, but it's really farmed salmon that people are eating. And a quarter of all the wild fish caught in the world is boiled down and ground up into feed that is mostly fed to salmon. And I should note that a lot of these fish, like these anchovies in this picture, are perfectly and totally edible. And congratulations, once again, American number one. We are the largest consumers of farmed salmon in the world. Even our wild salmon's a little wrong. I mean, Don't get me wrong, I eat a lot of wild salmon. I love wild salmon. You should eat the wild salmon, but that's not really what's happening. A lot of wild salmon, and we are the second biggest catcher of wild salmon in the world. We catch in America, we send to China, we frozen, they defrost it there, bone it, fillet it, and refreeze it, and send it back to us. There it is, double frozen. I remember I was on Terry Gross, and I told her about this, and she said, my mother always said not to double freeze food. And I was like, Terry, you're absolutely right. But unfortunately, that's kind of what we do here in America. We double freeze things. So what should I eat? All right, so let's remember, before we just, I made some fun of the first 2 most consumed seafoods in America. Let's not take that as a condemnation of seafood, because remember, it's really land food. I'm gonna call it land food, because if you're gonna take the tens of thousands of species that we eat from the sea and call it all seafood, I'm just gonna call all the land food land food. Land food is super carbon impactful, mostly because we're growing corn and we're growing soy, not to feed us, but to feed all these animals. So we do this again and again and again all over the country. And we, probably many of you flew over this when you were on your way to Seattle, but this flyover country, where tons and tons of corn and soy is grown to feed all the beef and pigs and chickens that we eat, that causes all this fertilizer to be used and put into our waterways. By the way, I took this picture in Minnesota when I was doing a story about the Mississippi River, and I asked, what is this terribly blighted town that has these giant fertilizer depots and a haze of nitrogen over it was Walnut Grove. Remember a little house on the prairie? That's what's happening. So all that fertilizer goes down into the Gulf of Mexico, causes a dead zone the size of the state of Connecticut some years, during which there's hardly any oxygen and no fish to be caught because there's no oxygen there. Literally land food killing seafood. But there are solutions out there. This guy, the mussels, clams, oysters, they all are tremendously good at filtering water and taking nitrogen out of the water. An oyster can filter something like 40 gallons of water in a single day. And if you look at it, back to our cast of characters, our carbon cast of characters, look at that. 0.6 kilos of carbon per kilo of food on your plate. Just really amazing. Okay, lentils, still great. I don't want you to turn, and if there are vegetarians in the room, I don't want to turn you away from them. But still, the mussel does really well. And if we join the mussel with a nice little eye and his friend, the kelp, another great, super great carbon benefit, filters better, even better than mussels and clams and oysters, really terrific. So those are the things we want to embrace. We would like, I think, over the next few years, and people in this room should think about it, we want to go from the SAD diet. We want to go, the Mediterranean diet, good idea. Lots of whole grains, lots of fruits and vegetables, just a little bit of animal protein. But here's my radical idea, and any cookbook author wants to take this up, please go for it. The pescatarian diet. What if we were to have a diet that's mostly plants, but had really sustainable seafood, low carbon impact? We're eating things like anchovies that we normally feed to salmon, mussels and seaweed that filter the water, even Alaska pollock that have super low carbon footprints, and of course Alaska salmon, wild Alaska salmon. So that would be a great thing to do. Unfortunately, in this country, we are pretty bad about allocating money where it should be. We spend $4.7 billion just on corn to feed things like cows. 1.1 billion on all fish altogether. I mean, it's quite a bargain we're getting out of the full fish situation. Well, it's a bargain that the present administration doesn't see. Currently being proposed is a budget cut of 28% to that paltry $1 billion down to $790 million, shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So if this is what we should eat, if this is what we're striving for, we have just one choice. And I mean this in the most bipartisan sense. We need to lock some up. Thank you very much.